I love that video and I love that song. Well done, Dare. And we saw our big Egmont in that video. Maybe I should knight him myself, Sir Olu Jacobs. I just given him a knighthood.
So what are you going to give her?
Oh,
Ma?
What do they call them?
Dame.
Dame. Yes. Dame Joke Silva. Well, Joke Jacobs. He just turned 80 about 3 weeks ago or so. Congratulations to you, sir. Belatedly, but it's better late than never. Now, let's get this show on the road. Believe it or not, Nigeria matters.
Absolutely.
Nigeria is Africa's biggest economy, and it is projected that by the year 2050, it's going to be the third most populous country in the world. Of course, right now it's the most populous black nation in the world. So we have a place in this world. But what are we doing to warrant that place that we are in? Are we harnessing it? I'm sure many would say not at all. What would you say?
While we talk about, it's one of the questions that I want to ask one of our guests here. While we talk about the potential figures of our population by 2050, I would love to also hear the potential value of Nigeria.
Well, fortunately, we have an accountant who's going to join us.
Exactly.
You know.
What's the potential value of Nigeria?
Well, let's just say Nigeria has huge potential. And we're talking about potential in every ramification, including Yahooism. That's also there.
EFCC.
It's all part of our nation.
EFCC
we can't deny it.
EFCC is listening to you.
But we should also be quick to add that that is taking root because these young people cannot find jobs when they finish school. It's not out of choice, I promise you.
Oh, certainly.
It's not out of choice. So, what are the tasks that Nigeria has to undertake now to make sure that it reaches its potential of being Big Brother in Africa? We have just been talking this morning that we bought cars for a nation, for one of our neighbors, worth over 1 billion naira.
1.145 billion. Please.
Good. So we want to be able to do that to other nations because we're Big Brother. But to be able to do that, we need to work hard so we can have the resources to be Big Brother. Big Brother isn't just by name. I mean, there's a huge task that goes with the territory. You have to be, not just be called.
When you are the big brother in the house, one prayer that people pray for those who are eldest brothers or eldest sisters is, may God give you the resources to be the eldest.
So the other nations are praying for Nigeria right now. Enough of our talk. Let's welcome our panel this morning. Mrs. Juliet Benitia, we haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Director for Programs, Institute for National Transformation. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us.
The opportunity to be here.
And we have a chartered accountant, Dr. Gbenga Adeoye. Good morning.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Hello, do you mind me asking the first question?
Please go ahead.
And they say ladies first. So I'm going to ask you both, but before we talk about the challenges, can we talk about the aspirations of Nigeria? We have a fair idea of where we are coming from before independence, until independence, and after independence. I saw a figure in the course of the week, or was it last week, that the naira the dollar was 70 kobo or thereabouts.
68.
In
68 kobo.
In the 70s.
Yeah.
So we systematically retrogressed over the years. So that means for me, we have some potential. Can you hazard some guesses as to what we have as a nation that can be aspirational for the generality of Nigerians? That what are the aspirations? What are the things that we have that people can say, if we develop this, we can be this, we can have this?
Thank you. I mean, I always tell people when I travel and with my green passport and I say I'm a Nigerian, I'm proudly so, because I'm fortunate to have a dad who ingrained Nigeria in my heart. And for us as young kids looking into Nigeria, we're looking for how we will participate in ensuring the greatness of Nigeria. Because when we had great men, their pride of being Nigerians, Nigeria was actually exporting civil servants to the Gambia and to different parts of Africa. That's how good our civil service was. We were the cream de la cream of civil service. So, I mean, we learned well from the British in performance and presenting ourselves.
But so how far back was this?
I mean, we're talking about the 60s and the 70s. And of course, the tumbling began in 75 and downwards when we removed meritocracy out of the civil service.
How did we do that?
We did it out of the sense of the military coups, of course. Afterwards, of course, the Gowons taking over at that time was a reparation work, even though there were gaps. But the intention was there was passion and patriotism for a country. And in 75 especially, I love to tell the 75 story because it had to do with my father and many others. That by 75, when many of them were retired from the civil service, they were still at their best, and they were young people.
On radio. Please
on
don't
radio.
forget.
Yes, on radio. So they were at their best, at the peak of their career, at the level where their knowledge, experience, and worldwide capacity could have been harnessed for a next generation to pass down the baton, even if you felt that they needed to leave. But here were men and women who had paid the high price of nation building, moving Nigeria to dimension, because we're talking about Nigerians now. We were also paying salaries of teachers in Trinidad and Tobago, Nigeria. And these were men who would hold hard cash with our banking system to take money to where it's going, and at the same amount it left the nation. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, yes.
And at 75, for example,
not a penny would miss.
Many of them did not know they were going to be retired so quickly. Most of them didn't have houses. They didn't have anything to present as part of the system that they have belonged to all these years. Coming back, most of them from abroad, being not on scholarship, personal scholarship of the nation, but their own investment. And from 75 downwards to Nigeria, down the line, civil service became, it's not my father's job. It's not my father's work. I should just take care of myself. And that patriotism, sacrifice, commitment to a nation was broken. And at that time, we started with some hocus pocus quota system. There's nothing wrong with a quota system that is based on merit. But when you take out merit and you bring in mediocrity into a system, that system fails. And we began to pay less attention to education, less attention to a whole lot of things. And that's why today, even in choosing my wardrobe, I wore red, because we're on red alert for a country that has cascaded from the dreams and aspiration. Somebody made a calculation that if our GDP per capita, he's an accountant, is even on the average of $10,000, we will be among the first 10 in the world. Because we have both population and natural resources. Some people have population, no natural resources. We have both. And you are not harnessing neither the resources nor the human capital that you have. And so throughout the years in Nigeria, education declined, excellence declined, meritocracy declined. At that time, my own father and many other fathers had to write exams for your next promotion. You couldn't bribe. You had to write those exams. But now we created a system, opened up the system to whatsoever. And so we now have a nation that we have inherited, a nation that was a nation of our dream. Great lofty heights attained, is no more attained. All sorts of corruption, the Yahoo issues, and the whole line of corruption that has been transported to the next generation by our own demonstration. You don't have to tell the child not to steal when he watches you and every day he knows that the money daddy has and the money uncle has is not real.
It's stolen.
So we have failed as a nation to recognize the pillars of society, which fundamental education. We're talking about insecurity. No, it started with the education issue. Where you have men and women out of school doing nothing. Before COVID-19, we had 10.5 million out of school, climbing to 13. Right now, do you know the figure? By UNICEF for Nigeria, 18.5 million children out of school. And I met an owner of school from Benin City. She said that data must be right because many of the children, after COVID-19, their parents did not send them back to school because they couldn't afford it. So these are matters arising, these are issues that we need to address, that a nation does not cascade or just descend because the devil hates us. No, it's because of the lack of meritocratic leadership that have values and understand what it takes for nation building. Because nation building is an art and a science that must be learned.
Well, you know, I was hoping to hear some good news. Okay. But you know, I mean, it's good at least there is this understanding of where we are coming from.
Yes.
Thank you for that background. Dr.
But Ayo, if you know what your problem is, that means you have an understanding of how you can start to address it.
The challenge, what made me ask that question is this. You know, many times we talk about leadership. But how can the word leadership exist in the absence of a vision?
There you go again.
I'm sorry. But anyway,
we talk about this vision almost every Saturday on this program. Does Nigeria have a vision? Where are we going? Where do we want to be in 10, 20, 50 years?
That's the reason I want to ask Dr. Adele this question. You know, I talked about the value, the potential aggregates of what we can say, this is what Nigeria has. Because if we have an idea of where we have, or what we can become, then we can, maybe someone somewhere can engineer a system that can put us on the path. Maybe not get there in 4 years or 8 years, but at least start us on the journey.
We can.
So you're an accountant. If you would hazard a criminally wild guess, I chose my words carefully, a criminally wild guess of what you would say Nigeria is worth in terms of resources or whatever it is, what value would you put to it?
Attaching a value will bring an underestimation.
Yes.
Because the first thing, just starting from where she stopped, in John chapter 8, verse 32, it says, you shall know the truth,
and the truth
shall set you free. And so on Monday, I had a tweet which says that Nigeria and Nigerians, they are going through tough times. But based on empirical data that I have in research, I know that our problem is not beyond redemption.
That's right.
And so I set an MCQ question, multiple choice question, with 3 options. Option A is that the people that are in charge of the affairs of the country is either they do not know what to do because they have no idea of what to do. And there's a Latin word for that, which says, nemo dat quod non habet. You cannot give what you don't have. And so, you're not going to blame somebody who is a carpenter and you bring a patient for him to treat because nemo dat quod non habet. So you are wrong if you are expecting healing. The second option is either that selfish interests, corruption, collides with national interest and development as well as patriotism. That is option B. The third option is a combination of A and B. So, back to the prospect of Nigeria.
So in all of those options, there is no lazy. The option of laziness is not there.
No. It's not there.
So we are not lazy.
Now, let's talk about the prospect of the country. I have been to several countries in the world, and I'm proud to be a Nigerian. We excel everywhere we go. And when you talk of resources, just look at United Kingdom and compare with Nigeria. we are far ahead of them in terms of resources. Look at Singapore, we are ahead of them. Look at Japan, we are ahead of them. In fact, in Japan, they don't even have natural resources. They only leverage on technology and education. So let me start the resources. In Enugu, you have the coal. In the south of Nigeria and some part of southwest, you have the oil. We're in a country where we have oil, crude oil, and we import finished product, PMS and diesel. Leave that. Natural resources that we have. Now, can I tell you, at Jakarta still, there, you can get resources to produce any equipment whatsoever. Caterpillar, bulldozer, and cars. Now, if you move down to Ogun State, to Shagamu, to Benin, to Benue, to Okwela, in Edo State, we have limestone. It was like a carpet laid down by God there.
Wow.
Now, what that means is that we can actually take care of the rest of Africa with our resources. Now, leave that. You come back to a place in Ogun State and some parts of Ondo, we have Fespa, kaolin. Now, these are materials. The glasses, this one, and the one you have in your car, the windscreen, the materials to produce them, they're actually in Ogun State. I have seen with my eyes. I've visited companies that are involved in this mining. But what we are doing, we are scratching the surface. Therefore, the problem we have is not of resources. And when you talk of education, capacity, intellectual strength, we are up there. Now, we have few set of people who are the less among us. Now, it's just like you take the worst of you, the least educated, the uninformed, the corrupt, and you ask them to lead intelligent people. I've interacted with a number of people, and I see that our problem is not rocket science to solve. So we have great potentials. The resources are numerous. Now, look, Egypt. There was a time in Egypt, it rained only 9 times a year. But if you go to Egypt today, you see all kinds of fruits. In 2017, I went on a journey to Israel to look at the agricultural system. Israel, they don't have water. They take from the Red Sea and the rest and purify. And the entire system in Israel, in agric, is irrigation. Here we have the rainforest. In my village, you could have a farm and have a yield without any irrigation because we have a season rainy system that works. In Israel, they did something. If you have a farm, technology is what they use. If you want your farm to be irrigated at 12 in the afternoon, you just press a button and it's going to happen. There was a time we were in Washington with the then Vice President, Sambo, on Agric Expo. And I met a company that said they came to Nigeria to sell irrigation equipment at discount to encourage our all-season farming, which means you want corn, you can get in January, February, all year round. Anything you want. This guy told me that they discovered that all the governors, it was entering their deaf ears. They do not understand what to do. So this company had to now do a demo around Kwara State in the lorry on their own. And they started planting pepper. And their pepper is being exported to Europe. And he said to me, we don't even need a fantastic airport. I just need one runway and one rickety plane to move my goods. Now, I asked the question. This year alone, from January to June, we have given 4.1 trillion, underline trillion, in allocation between state, federal, and local government. Now, on the average, it's about 600 billion in a month. Now, there is no effect that you can effectively point to in any of the states in terms of employment generation. Back to the Yahoo you mentioned. Our youths, we have today in Nigeria over 3 million Nigerian graduates with postgraduate qualification that do not have work at all. We have a population of about 200 million people, out of which people who are less than 70 years of age, they are 70%. That means we have about 140 million energetic people who are idle or useless, in quotes, with nothing to do. So when you talk of building criminalities, it comes from this. So that's why it says that when the hands are idle, it becomes the devil's workshop. So I ask a question. With my own experience as a chartered accountant and business advisor, I consulted for a company. The setup cost of that company was less than 5 billion. Land, equipment, everything. And today, that company has about 1,000 direct and indirect employment with a turnover annually in excess of 20 billion. So I asked the question, why are we being stupid?
Exactly.
Why can't we say, okay, we want to share 600 billion. We are not going to give you. Take 10% out, 60 billion. And then let's see how we can set up two factories in each geopolitical zone to create employment. And we say, this company, you pay no tax at all. All your profit, you plow back to double your capacity every 5 years. Can I tell you, and we're going to do laws. The other day, I was discussing with Chief Femi Falana. I said, I know the legislation that we need to turn this country around is not more than 20 pages. 20 pages legislation. We sit down together and say, where are we going? We know where we are, and we know where we're going.
Is it then a question of not knowing what to do or the will to do it?
So that's why I said my MCQ question has option A, B, and C. In law, they say res ipsa loquitur. The facts speak for itself. When you listen to people in government talk, you'll be crying. And to me, I feel that they are just sincerely wrong and ignorant. Because when you see a man come on television and speak about things that doesn't make sense, and is happy about it, you can't blame this person.
Okay.
It's like taking a patient to a carpenter instead of a physician.
I can't even imagine that.
Mrs. Benite, to my mind, all of this hinges on education.
Yes, ma'am.
And you will agree with me that even the standard of our education, social media, I saw in the course of the week, was doing a vox pop, and they asked someone, what is 6:15? And the guy who apparently is a graduate or something did not understand. So another person sent me a message. Is this supposed to be entertainment?
Yes,
or is it a real vox pop?
Are you saying it's real?
It is a real vox pop.
That is
it's real?
That is the state of the nation.
I thought it was an extra from a movie.
No, it's real. It's a real vox pop.
It is.
And so, I mean, it set me wondering, our educational system, it looks like we lose it right from when we are little. The things we're supposed to learn when we are small, 3, 4, 5 years old, if we don't learn them, it seems that we lose the chance forever. It's like the time just passes and you cannot get it back. And then you carry that ignoramus status into university. They push you out because they don't want you to repeat. How do they say, let my people go? They push you, you go out. Then you're in the job market, you can't find a job, or if you find one, you can't keep it because you're not efficient. So they fire you here, you go to the next place, they fire you. So what are we going to do about this, starting from when the children are little? so that they get the adequate learning?
I mean, today I had to just bring some notes because I couldn't bring in my phone. I'm going to quote 3 quotes on education. Education is the greatest emergency that we have right now. And people say, oh no, we have this million graduates, so education is not needed.
But they don't have jobs.
How many of your graduates can even create jobs? Because it's from education we can create the entrepreneurial mindset. Israel that he talks about has the highest startup per capita in the world, meaning they teach their children to think productivity, not consumption, to think creativity, not salary. So what can you create? What value can you add to the society? Whether it's President Buhari in 2017, then you have the quote by World Bank, then you have the quote by UNICEF Director General Audrey Azoulay. Each one of them emphasized that education is the key to creating knowledge, skills, value, attitude, etc. Apart from the fact that when we say education, because education creates value, belief system, and culture. So when we are talking about education, we are talking about holistic education. According to the Sustainable Development Goal, they now call it quality education. So education now has to be, things have to be added to it. Every year, nations are shifting their education curricula to match up with the need. We're talking about the 4th Industrial Revolution, and you now have children who are not smart from even when they are young, and when a child is even trying to be smart, it transports to the Yahoo system. The fact that our children can even access such mind means that the development of the mind of the Nigerian to do extraordinary, even in research, development, and seeking knowledge, but it has not been channeled. And therefore, there is a necessity for us to understand as Africans, Nigeria specifically, like he said, leading the rest of the African nation. Forget this $500 billion, what do they call it that we have?
GDP.
GDP, when nations like Brazil is doing 1 trillion plus.
Have you verified the data?
Well, let's leave it as happy and rejoice that even half. But half is not a real value. Because when you have 18 million children out of school, you're already in trouble. Therefore, for example, our education curriculum has not been redefined to fit the Nigeria of today and tomorrow, whereby technology has become the critical factor.
Yeah.
Take, for example, Lagos State public schools. There haven't been new public school created. But you see, you don't have to create structure anymore to create schools. School can be right at the child's table, where we are putting different places, whether a church is mosque, offices. Let the child have access to education and the 21st century education. What is the education that I had to pay for my children, and why I paid that price? Is that the education that makes the child think and look into the future. He's talking about industrialization. But guess what? One of the critical factors that we have that even bringing industry to Nigeria will be difficult is that our children are not technical. We have too many people reading management. What in the world are you managing? That doesn't exist. Where are the sciences, technical skill, capacity to fix things? We're talking about plumbing. We're talking about tiling. We still import all those things.
I was actually going to ask you, when you talked about education, perhaps there is a need to decrypt it so that people understand exactly what our needs are.
Yes.
Because I took the pain. See, I stressed the word pain because it was painful. I took the pain to look at the national policy on education. And sincerely, the only page I really wanted to look at was the page that talks about objectives.
Yes.
I was actually looking for something futuristic.
Nothing.
What did you find?
It's not there. When you say futuristic, you're talking about people thinking outside the box. For example, that graduate, my husband is an architect who turned to become a plumber.
I was going to give that example.
My husband decided to become a
me
plumber.
to it. He became a plumber.
A professional plumber.
And he explained to me, he says, my dear, you'll be surprised how many houses in the highbrow areas of Lagos have plumbing issues that he has gone to resolve. He threw away his architecture with I'm going to learn to be a plumber.
I think it's still part of architecture.
Yes,
too.
Actually it is, because he saw that the gap in architecture was plumbing. So he became a professional plumber.
Yes.
He did the exams to become a professional. So he trains plumbers.
He trains plumbers now.
Prepares them for international exams. Because his idea is that if Nigeria does not standardize, Nigeria cannot compete. So when you bring industry, common things to fix like cars, we are still doing Baba Salah fixing. So someone fixes engine,
trial and error.
Electrical matter starts. He fixes electrical, he spoils the ignition.
So essentially, when you talk about my sincere apologies, Alero.
Before you take us away from this topic,
it's
please.
the same one.
Okay.
It's a serious issue.
Very serious.
Because part of the things that we hope to be able to look at are the high cost of living, all these insecurity issues, lamentations about ASU killings and all those things. What you are saying essentially is we seemed to have planned this situation that we are in now. That's the way it seems.
Yes,
It seems
with
like
lack of knowledge and political will, selfish interest, a pile-up of thoughts that happened. Take, for example...
And it didn't happen within 4-8 years.
No. We're talking about decades now. It's that deteriorated. When you tolerate someone with 20 over 100 and give them admission, what you have said to the society, it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
It's okay to cheat.
Yeah.
It's okay to be there and just carry on. Because you're a plumber or because you're a tiler doesn't mean you don't need mathematical skills. Because to put the tile in a trajectory of an angle, you need to know that 1.5 is different from 1.55.
Oh, Mrs. Benici.
So these are skills that we are already lacking. And if there's an emergency, is to bring this skill. Let me just put this thought quickly, Auntie Alero. Is that, what do they call it? Linkwai Yi did what we call makeshift. 4 to 6 months. Got international company to evaluate their technical skill of even their graduates while the factories were being built. So the factory idea of having factories in location should happen. But pari passu, while the factories are climbing from ground zero, the education for technical capacity, competitive advantage of an African Nigerian who is already have this ability of exuberant passion and pursuit for happiness. Is already embedded. Every Nigerian wants to enjoy life.
Yes.
So what do you do as a leader is to cultivate that. And like he said, give these guys tax holiday. What in the world do you need to tax people who want to contribute to a society? And move people out of their homes and put them into the labor market. And if they stay at home, there will even be a penalty for strolling and doing nothing. When you create the opportunity, but now you cannot penalize people when you have not created the opportunity.
Mrs. Benite, before you leave this thing, my worry is that because this actually was an experience between myself and your husband.
Yes.
A graduate wanted to do something where he could earn a living because he'd been looking for a job for years. He saw your husband was interviewed and he was given what date his course would start. And then he called me and said, so when they ask me what I do for a living, I'm going to say I'm a plumber. You know this Nigerian thing. I mean, how do we deal with that? There's also that. How can I say I'm a carpenter?
You know? So let me just, because it's my husband also, I had the problem. When my husband said he was going to be a plumber, I said, no. I said, honey, I didn't marry a plumber. I married an architect. So he said, he now sat me and he said, sweetheart, it's not like that. He said, it's not like that. So I now coined a word for him. I now called him Aki Plumber. And he was still laughing at me. Why? He now said to me, it is not the job's name. It is the value and the currency. We have 2 boys that were taken off the street, given to us by a foundation. And these 2 boys, one is in Abuja. He has built his house, married, from the streets. Because they went through this plumbing, and the first course in the plumbing course is character reorientation. how to choose product.
You see?
And insists that you cannot cheat customers. So that is done at the beginning as a draw-in. My husband told them the judgment that comes with your fake materials, and also how to identify them. In short, you can identify these materials right at the market. But you see, the issue is that the value society is placing on these skills is terrible, because in the United Kingdom and places, my goodness, those guys are driving what you need to think about.
Ma'am, it's not
BMWs and
it's not
stuff
that
like
these
that.
things, for instance, I have seen in the Constitution, Dr. Adeoye, that all these morals, character, integrity, and all some of those things are also in the Constitution.
But how is it being taught? Go ahead.
Let me say that the crisis we have in the country started from the discovery of oil. And so, we didn't discover oil in 1975. No, I know. So, it's a gradual process. Now, in physics, there is what we call stopping distance.
Yeah.
So, if you have a ceiling fan and then you switch off the fan, the fan is going to remain rotating for a while. Now, if you just walk into that room and you do not know that the fan was switched off, you probably think it's working. You come back 1 minute later, you see that it's going down slowly. At the end of the day, then total stop. So what we have in Nigeria is a gradual process.
Yeah.
You know,
and so someone already switched off the ceiling fan.
Yes, the ceiling fan is off. So what you see is a slow rotation. Now, I will tell you something. Dignity of labor is what we have lost.
Yes.
Now, you see a young man, he wants to put on tie. My wife studied mass communication. At a time, she worked briefly at NTA and then Financial Times or something. So, but my wife used to tell me, you are the one that like to read. You study this, you study that, you get PhD. As for her, she wants to be Iyaloja, right? Sometimes, when people get into our supermarket, they find my wife and they think she's one of the sales girls. Sometimes she sit down with a till. Now, what we have lost is dignity of labor.
That's right.
In the US, if you call a plumber, you know, $200 before the work is done. In the UK, the same way. And I remember I was in one hotel about 2 years ago or so in London, and they were replacing the tiles. And the guys that were doing the replacement, I just loved them. The boots, the manner of their dressing, their intellect. And I'll take you back to China. One of the things that China has done to resolve unemployment and poverty is technical education.
That's it.
Now, this technical education, you need to have an incubation center.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. And I said, look, I do not need you to come and speak big grammar for me if you can lay the tiles. I do not need big grammar from you if you can fix the car. And so you have truck drivers in Nigeria today from China. There is a company in this country manufacturing truck from China. Most of the people that are working there, they are not university graduates because they were trained to so do. So when we look at it holistically, we need to redefine our education system. One day I asked my son, how many subjects are you doing in school? And you are seeing subjects like 18 subjects. You are going to destroy that person. 11, 13. Right now in the US, they have redefined their curriculum. So if they notice that this child from elementary school is desiring to be an engineer, is desiring to be a pilot or a lawyer, the courses that you will do will be along that line. And we need to see that, look, we need to declare a state of emergency in education and power sector. Because, and even our banking system, I do not know, if I am Emefiele, I will run away from Nigeria and go and hide somewhere. You know why? If I am the CBN governor, I will not be able to sleep at night. That banks are lending at 30%. Because this industry is interwoven. It's a complex issue. Technical education, interest rate, and power. I'll give you an example. We run a business that we use 100 liters of diesel per day. All right? Now, if you use 100 liters, in some parts of the country, it's 850 naira. What that means in a month is 2,550,000 in a month. Because there are some small equipment that uses electric motors. If you don't have three-phase electricity, it's not going to work. Therefore, you must depend on generator. In a year, that's 30.6 million naira.
How much then are
Now, wait a minute. If you now borrow 100 million from the bank to operate, banks now gives you interest of 30% per annum. That's 30 million.
Yeah.
Plus your diesel cost, 30.6. You have 60.6. What is your profit? So if you make profit of 20%, it means that you'll be in deficit of 40.6 million. Now, let's assume you just do fantastically well and your profit is 50%. Mind you, I haven't talked about overheads.
Yes.
Other petty things.
Yes.
Multiple taxation.
Exactly.
And can I tell you, there is a policy in Nigeria that custom should not have a roadblock in a place that is above 40 kilometers to the border. Nobody listens. So we're in a country where people just do what they like. And so that's the cause of our crisis. So we need to sit down on a round table, call all experts.
Exactly.
Our problem is not beyond redemption. So we take education, technical education. Listen, I just heard that the strike is going to continue in our university. And I'll tell you my experience. I went to Ogun State University for my MSc. 18 months program. I spent 4 years.
Wow.
2002, my matric is 202/276. I did not get my certificate until 2006.
Wow.
I made up my mind that I will never go to public institution. So when I wanted to do my PhD, I went to Bangkok University. All of us that are here, tell me if you can send any of your words to public primary school, secondary school, or higher institutions.
Ain't happening.
So these are the problems. And the leaders that are in charge of the economy, their children are in school abroad. So they do not care about what you're talking about. You are talking technical education. NNPC is just a phone call. They will employ their daughters or sons. So these are the crises.
We're running. I mean, we've only just scratched this on the surface. We have not gone to health. We have not gone to security.
We only opened the box. We have not even...
We've run out of time, so I need to take your final word on this.
Final word.
Yes, sir.
We need to become sincere and call a spade a spade. And you cannot shave a man's head behind him. So all our heads are bushy. As a country, we need to come together and redefine our focus as a country.
Mrs. Benitier?
The reality is that when you despise education, you despise the society. A society that shuns quality education is a society that will suffer adequately. And this emergency, take for example, 4 months, children are out of school, they would have gained a technical skill as a backup for what could happen. And not just government, the elite class and society must begin to put pressure where pressure is required. Because we cannot always sit down and say, oh, it's the government, oh, it's President Buhari. Every one of us, it is time for us to declare an education emergency and ensure that you see a child outside and insist on the mom, give him a technical skill while he waits for his blue collar. But first of all, let him get doing something. After all, they are doing Uber now.
Knowing fully well that we all can't be blue collar.
Exactly. They are doing Uber now, so we can do more.
Mrs. Juliet Benitier, Director for Programs, Institute for National Transformation, and Dr. Gbenga Adeoye, Chartered Accountant, who joined us this morning to look at these issues. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do join us.